The podcast you're about to hear involves true stories, which may contain graphic content that is not suitable for children. Listener's discretion is advised. This is Esoteric Oddities.
Hey.
Hey guys, it's flu season and I'm sick as shit.
Sarah literally had the flu. Might still have it. Breathe into your pop filter so I don't breathe in your germs. No, I don't. Okay.
Oh.
Thank you. So you got sick as shit during Thanksgiving.
I did. I started getting sick on Thursday night and then it was
All downhill from there.
It sure was. I feel like Dookie, so.
That's the text I got this morning. I feel like Dookie. But we are coming to you live. Well, it's not live, but pre-recorded from our new studio. But we're not in a new studio. We're just
my house.
We're in Sarah's kitchen, and the cat is seductively looking at me. So if you hear me drift off, it's because I'm distracted.
Let's hope he doesn't make any sudden movements or noise, because he tends to do that.
No noise in this house.
Yeah.
Today's topic is, weird, creepy stuff, right? So I'm doing paranormal stuff, and
I'm doing the scientific part of exorcism. So
we got a very specific episode.
I couldn't even say that right now if I wanted to, because my nose is so stuffy.
The Pacific Ocean.
It's the Pacific.
You don't have ghost stories, do you? You don't have any from like when you were little? Nothing paranormal?
There was a story that a friend told me, but I don't know how true it is, so I don't. If you want me to tell,
no, but did it happen to you?
No, I don't have any weird stuff happen to me. You know this.
I know, that's why I'm asking. I remember when I was a kid.
You always have weird stuff happening.
I know, but my friend had a really weird, like creepy basement, and we always thought it was haunted. And we were just like fucking around doing stupid kid stuff, and we set up a camera in his basement, and we were making like a Mortal Kombat movie.
I love that.
And we were fighting, and we like staged this whole fight thing. Yeah, it's funny. Stop. I would love to see that footage. It'd be funny.
What is that Mortal Kombat? What is that? The slogan of Mortal Kombat? Shit. Google slogan of Mortal Kombat. It's like, finish him. Isn't that it?
Oh, that's not the slogan.
Oh, well, basically it's because that's how everyone knows it's Mortal Kombat.
But yeah, so we were doing that, and we were filming, and out of nowhere we were fighting, but we were near a china cabinet which had all his mom's expensive shit in it.
Yeah, see.
Okay, but we really weren't close to it, and then like out of nowhere the whole china cabinet falls forward and just like smashes, and it like barely misses us.
I know your friend's mom was pissed.
Well, we were like, what the fuck just happened? Well, then we were playing the blame game, and we were like, well, you did it. And I was like, no, I swear I didn't touch it. And he was like, I swear I didn't touch it. And
it's like your house and the cabinets again.
Mm-hmm. And we were both like, well, somebody had to have touched it. And we were like, okay, well, we filmed it, so let's see who did it. And then like, we'll fucking
you've
we'll
been
blame
filming
you.
Shit forever.
I know. So we go back. This was probably in like third grade, is because I fell out with this kid after I got into a fight with him and drug him into traffic by his hair.
Jonathan did stuff like that all the time.
I did not. I was a good child. Any huevos. That
was like really echoey.
Yeah, the acoustics in here are not that great, so you're gonna have to take care of these walls and that ceiling that has a fucking hole in it. Yeah. Let me finish my story. We're going all over the damn place.
Always.
So we go back and we watch the tape, and when the china cabinet is about to fall over, the camera cuts out to black, and then it cuts like back to video when it's on the ground, and neither of us were like near it.
See, that's how you know. Wait, I do have one story.
Okay.
So when I was little, I don't know if this is like me being little and like an imaginary friend type thing, but I always used to see this little boy. This little boy had like a buzzcut coconut haircut, like bangs.
Buzzcut coconut haircut.
Buzzcut coconut haircut.
Keith.
So he had like a really, Ned's Declassified?
Yeah, coconut head.
He had hair like that.
Yikes.
And it was black. And he had on this like, I'm going to guess,
Denim.
No, denim. No.
Was it Gucci?
No, he had on, it was like,
Von Dutch hat?
let me see if I could Google it for you.
Okay.
I don't know. It was like one of those where they used to wear the long socks and the like pointy shoes, kind of like a.
Oh, like a little Dutch boy.
Yes. Yeah.
Like wooden, like clogs.
Yeah.
Okay.
He had like an outfit like that, and I never
like
knew.
a lederhosen.
Exactly, and I never knew if it was real or my imagination, and I still don't know. But
was it just a boy who walked around your house in lederhosen?
he would hide behind things. He would just be
in
hiding.
your house.
Yeah.
Imagine if if you like find out that you have like an older brother and it was just this man in lederhosen that you thought was fake your whole life.
Shut up. That's like unrealistic.
Anything's realistic in a world that's so strange.
That's true. But yeah, that's my only ghost
Paranormal. Oh, the spooky lederhosen.
Oh, that could be the title.
I have one more. Well, I have a bunch of ghost stories, but I have one more that I kind of want to tell. I told this on a YouTube video like maybe 2 years ago. So if you're listening to me and you've watched my YouTube videos, this might be a recap, but oh well. So I had this apartment freshman year. I don't know why you weren't there, but I was mostly hanging out with Sam. This was at the end of the year.
I don't think we met yet.
Yes, we did. This was at the end of the year. This is when we were like moving out. But I don't know where you were during this time. But there was one night we watched Paranormal Activity. I had never seen it before. It was like it was right when Paranormal, the first one I think, had just come out. And we're sitting in my apartment and we're watching it. And then we start to talk about our experiences. Stop. What are you doing?
That light keeps flickering.
Okay, see. And we're talking about ghosts. No big deal. And then we start talking about our experiences and stuff, and it's just her and I in the apartment. Well, we thought. And our backs were to the sink.
It's my cat trying to get in your bag. The cat's out of the bag.
The cat's actually in the bag. Our backs were to the sink, like the way do you remember? My sofa was facing the TV, and then
it was like
my back was to the
behind
sink.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the sink turned on, and I thought it was my roommate, and he's like doing the dishes for once in his life. You can relate. And
Sure can.
then the sink had been running for like a little too long, and I was like, all right, what is this boy doing? So I turn around and there's nobody at the sink, and I'm like, did my roommate really, because he used to get like stoned all the time. And I was like, is he really like too high to like turn? Yeah. So I go down, I turn it off, and then I go down the hallway to be like, yo, bro, you like left the sink on.
And I'm not turning it off for you. I'll come and get you to tell you that you left it running.
No, I did turn it off. I'm petty, but I'm like, I got bills to pay, and I'm not trying to rack up that water bill. And I go into his room, and there's nobody in there. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. And I checked the other rooms because I had a pretty big apartment, and literally nobody's in this place except for me and my friend Sam. And I was like, oh, that's really weird. So then the next day we're watching another movie. It was The Moth Diaries, I think. It was a night movie. But so we're sitting there, and it's cold in my apartment. Like when it's cold and it's summer, you can't afford that shit. So I go over to the air conditioner and flip the switch, like the little, like you have it there, but it's like the little switches that, it wasn't a digital bitch. So I flip the switch and I turn it off, and then I go and I sit back down, and as soon as I sit down, it like clicks. And the AC turns back on, and I'm like, what the hell? So I go over, and the thing is flipped again, and it wasn't like on auto. It was like flipped 2 notches to where it was on off, and then it like was flipped all the way on. Did I tell you this before?
I don't think so.
Kiko was in like the last day of it. So
the last day, like there was multiple days.
There was.
Stop,
so then this was the
scary.
next weird thing that happened. And then I was like, oh, okay, that's really weird and kind of creepy, but I wasn't thinking too much of it. But while we're watching Moth Diaries, we're talking about ghost stuff, and when you talk about things, sometimes it amplifies things.
Oh,
so
yeah,
good thing we're talking about
that.
it now. So then the next day, or I think it might have been like the Friday or whenever we had taco night, it was Sam, me, and our friend Kiko, and they are over, and we're making tacos, and I'm sitting. We watched another scary like ghost show. I don't remember what it was, but with some ghost show. And then the ghost show ends. I think we talked about haunted shit for like a minute, and then I'm playing Xbox, and I'm like, again, my back is towards the sink and where my kitchen is, and I'm leaning forward playing my game while Sam and Kiko are like making food. And then Kiko comes down comes over to the couch and sits next to me, And I said something to her. I don't remember what I said, but like she didn't respond. So I looked over and nobody is sitting on the couch next to me.
Stop.
And when I say I felt her walk over, sit on the couch, I felt the cushion in the couch go
like
down.
Move. Yeah.
I felt, because we had a cover, we had like a sheet that was on our couch because our couch was nasty. It was like, I don't know, college is a weird time for people sitting on couches that are shared. So
and didn't your roommate sleep on the couch?
yeah, that was a weird, anyway. So when like I felt the cover like tug under my ass, like I felt like it pull. So I literally felt somebody sitting next to me. I felt the leg touching my leg, and I was 100% sure it was Kiko. Like I even like, I don't think I saw anything out of my peripherals, but in retrospect, I feel like my brain is filling. Yeah, I feel like my brain is filling in that gap to like make sense of it. Well, I started freaking out because I turn around and both of them are in the kitchen and nobody else is home. So I was like trying to explain to them what happened. I was freaking the fuck out. Yeah. Well, Sam already knew like weird shit was happening. And then for the rest of the year, I think we were only there for like 2 more weeks before we moved out. And for the rest of the year, Sam slept in the same room as me because I was not having it.
Oh my god, wait, paranormal activity, that stuff is like what scares me most. Like Michael Myers doesn't scare me, Jason doesn't scare me, those fucking clowns don't scare me. Paranormal shit scares me.
Because it like defies laws and like they are in your house and can do whatever
and
the hell they want.
And they can do whatever the fuck they want and you can't do anything about it.
They can run up your water bill, they can run up your electricity bill, and they ain't even got it. You can't even take their asses to court. I ain't got that to do. But yeah, for some reason, like Sam and me, we stayed in the same room, but we stayed in my apartment because her apartment was like, her roommates were kind of weird and it smelled.
I forget. I never knew who she lived with. I don't think I was ever in her apartment.
You would know.
Oh yeah, nope.
Yeah, no. Because I think we both knew her roommates. But okay, hi guys. Welcome
guys,
to Esoteric Oddities. Did we even say that? Hi.
Hi, welcome to Esoteric Oddities. I'm Sarah.
I'm also Sarah. And yeah, paranormal shit today. So Sarah picked this topic. So that means your boy's going first. And my paranormal story is the Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Sanatorium. So in the early 1900s, Louisville, Kentucky had a severe outbreak of tuberculosis, and it was more popularly known as the White Plague. And this was due to all the wetlands along the Ohio River, which made it a perfect breeding ground for tuberculosis bacteria. So tuberculosis, or TB, is a microbacterial infection which is contracted when a person breathes in a bacteria called Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and essentially it does a lot of bad shit, but essentially it eats away at your lungs, and it has taken the lives of over 2 billion people in totality. So in an attempt to contain the disease, a 2-story wooden sanatorium was opened, which consisted of an administrative and a main building with 2 open-air pavilions, and they each housed 20 patients. And it was for the treatment of early cases. So, we got 2 billion people dying. They're like, we got 20 of them. Don't worry. Well, technically 40. Going big.
Go big or go home.
Exactly. So due to the constant need for repairs of the wooden structures, the need for more durable structure, as well as the need for more beds so that people would not be turned away due to lack of space, construction for a 5-story building that was going to... it was going to be able to hold 400 patients, began in March of 1924. And then the new building opened October 17th, 1926. And for many, this place was hell between walls. It was considered the most advanced tuberculosis sanatorium in the country, but even then, most patients succumbed to the disease. And in those days before medicine was available to treat the disease, it was thought that the best treatment for tuberculosis was fresh air, nutritious food, and lots of rest, aka what we should all be doing anyway.
Every day, literally, but we don't.
We're
shitty to our bodies.
True. I'm literally going to go pick up a 40 after this.
Yeah. So.
And I'm going to drink it on the subway.
I love that. Maybe I should do the same. What's being sick?
Flu season, my ass. So many patients survived their stay at Waverly Hills, but it is estimated that thousands of people died here at the height of the epidemic. In many cases, the treatments for this disease were as bad as the disease itself. Personally, I would say it's much worse. So some of the experiments that were conducted in search for a cure seemed barbaric by today's standards. Patients' lungs were exposed to ultraviolet light to try to stop the bacteria from spreading. And this was done in quote-unquote sunrooms, which used artificial light in place of sunlight. Or they would be placed on roofs or open porches in the hospital, just, with their lungs hanging out.
What, like cut open?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Where all the flies can come and hang out on your lungs. So since fresh air was, thought to be a possible cure, patients were often placed in front of huge windows or on open porches, no matter what season, including the coldest winters. There's actually pictures online of people, like, there's snow everywhere, and it's just people outside because they
kept their lungs out.
Well, I don't think they kept their lungs out for this part, but that was more of a summer activity. So other treatments were actually less pleasant, if you can imagine that, and had much more blood. And this consisted of balloons that were surgically implanted into the lungs.
I heard about this.
And then filled with air to expand them.
It was like it helps them breathe, basically.
Yeah, well, it helps them breathe, but it also helps, put fresh air into your lungs because, it was a good idea.
Human breath or helium is just a way to go.
Helium, just pumping helium into people's fucking
Isn't
lungs.
that what they put balloons in?
They didn't use helium though. They were using the balloon as like an inflation device.
How did they get the balloon up? One person's breath or helium?
No, you can pump air into it.
Oh,
it's not only helium that you can put in a balloon.
They do have those things where you. Oh, edit that part out.
Listen, I'm crunched for time today.
In a world where Sarah is stupid.
But so this was rarely used, honestly, and it was considered a last resort, and few patients survived it. Wonder why. So on the first floor of this sanatorium, patients whose TB moved to their brains received electroshock therapy, which, if you don't know, usually doesn't end well. And if you kind of know what it is, or you don't know what it is, don't worry, because I'm going to break it down for you. So patients would lay down on a hospital bed, and they would have two metal prongs attached to both sides of their heads over the frontal and temporal lobe. The doctor would then flip a switch on a small machine, and electrodes would be sent directly to the patient's brain. And this would cause an intense convulsion, leaving the patients flailing violently on the hospital beds. And oftentimes they would break their spines. And if they were being held down by doctors, they would often break their limbs due to the overwhelming power of electricity running through their bodies.
Well, yeah.
So they obviously did not have as high of technology as they do today, but monitors nowadays prove that brain waves actually, like during this therapy and how intense they were doing it back then, brain waves would actually tend to flatline, which pretty much means, they were kind of going brain dead. And then following that, patients would often fall into a coma, usually only lasting minutes, but sometimes it would last hours or days. And when patients woke up, they were in a completely disoriented state, and oftentimes they could not remember that they had the treatment. They didn't remember giving consent to have the treatment, if they even did, which brought up legal issues later.
Oh my God.
And over time, patients would lose their memory of the lives that they lived before, and they would become more submissive. But time would honestly never make these people better because the patients would never be the same again. Some patients, it obviously varied patient to patient, but some patients just went like completely like that crazy ass bird from Cocoa Puffs.
They used to do that back in the day. They'd give people, like, if they found out someone was gay, they would give them electric shock therapy to help them, like, forget.
Well, either forget or cure them.
Yeah, which didn't work.
True. So while patients who both survived the disease and treatments left Waverly Hills through the front doors, the majority of the patients left through what came to be known as the body chute.
Is this based on the American Horror Story house?
This is not based on it. American Horror Story might be based on this. No, it wasn't, because I forget what the name of the asylum was, but there was an asylum that they actually did a television documentary on to show how awful the conditions were. So no, but this stuff was happening.
Like
in more than one place.
I was gonna say probably all over.
Yeah.
Scary.
But at this time, this was the biggest that was happening back then. So the enclosed tunnel for the dead led from the hospital to railroad tracks at the bottom of a hill. And then they would use a motorized rail and cable system, and the bodies were lowered in secret onto waiting trains. And it's not reported exactly how many bodies were taken or how many were disposed of, but records can prove 11,000 people died during their time at Waverly Hills. However, due to sketchy paperwork and like the secrecy that the hospital kept, it's estimated that 63,000 people died.
Where were these people's families? Oh my God, that's really sad.
They died at the sanatorium and made their exit through the secrecy of the body chute. And the reason they used the body chute in secrecy was because they didn't really want other patients and people who were in the hospital to see how many corpses were leaving, because after all, their mental health, the doctors believed, was just as important as their physical health.
Bye.
But for those who were mentally insane tuberculosis patients, they were housed on the 5th floor, which would later become the most infamous floor and haunted one at the sanatorium. So this kept them far away from the rest of the patients in the hospital, but they were still in an area where they could benefit from fresh air and sunshine as much as you can benefit from fresh air and sunshine.
When your lungs are out in the open.
With flies hanging out on them. So the 5th floor consisted of 2 nurses' stations, a pantry, a linen room, a medicine room, and 2 medium-sized rooms on either sides of the nurses' stations. It's kind of hard to explain, but when you're looking at a blueprint, you're like, oh, yes, I see how that works. But when I'm reading it out loud, I'm realizing that it
doesn't look that way or sound that way.
Well, use your fucking imaginations, y'all. So this floor is actually centered in the middle of the hospital, and the 2 wards ended. There's like an opening where it opens out into like a patio, and this was actually the top floor. It was 5 floors, so this was the top floor, and like you could walk out to the patio, which oversaw, it was
like the
it was
backyard.
it was pretty much a roof patio because it was so high up.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice for all the people visiting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can just see everybody. Oh yeah, look at him! Look at up there. There's Donald. There's his lungs hanging. Hey, Donnie. How's it treating you? So once again, the overpopulation of the hospital led patient neglect, and ultimately the mentally ill patients would quickly succumb to their disease and be taken down the body chute because, they were treated most of the time last. But patients were not the only ones to perish within the walls of the sanatorium. So since TB was extremely contagious, once you entered the sanatorium, whether you were a patient, a doctor, or a nurse, you were pretty much quarantined to the rest of the world.
Even like doctors?
Even doctors and nurses. Mm-hmm.
Yikes.
Mm-hmm. And in 1928, a nurse was found dead on the 5th floor in room 502. She had committed suicide by hanging herself from the light fixture, and she was 29 years old at the time of her death and unmarried. However, there was a rumor that she was pregnant with one of the doctor's babies, and it spread quickly throughout the hospital facility. It is unclear if the rumor is true or not, but whether it is true or not, if you think about it, her whole life was quarantined between those walls, and back then, if you weren't married and you got pregnant by like a doctor, it wasn't the doctor's fault. It was your fault. You were like shamed, you were shunned, and that was her life. She was like living with sick patients with tuberculosis, and everybody she knew thought she was pregnant. So whether it was true or not, she was like damned.
Right.
But this was not the only tragedy that would occur in room 502. In 1932, another nurse who worked in room 502 fell from the patio roof and
fell
and plunged several stories to her death. It is still unclear if she jumped or was pushed, but an accident is highly unlikely. By the late 1930s, tuberculosis had declined around the world, and by the mid-40s, new medicines had been largely eradicated in the United States, and the introduction of some unpronounceable medicine in 1943, pretty much tuberculosis was greatly lowered, thank God. And there was no longer a need for a huge hospital, so the remaining patients from the Waverly Hills were sent to Hazelwood Sanatorium in Louisville, and Waverly Hills was closed in 1961. But the building reopened in 1962
What?
as Woodhaven geriatric center, a nursing home primarily treating aging patients with various stages of dementia, mobility limits, as well as severely mentally handicapped. However, the sadistic walls of the hospital still echoed a hunger for sick and twisted means of cures. Did you like that line? I wrote that. I did not copy and paste. I literally wrote that copyright. If you guys want to use it, you can use it. But go ahead and email me at odditiespodcast@gmail.com.
I always ask Jonathan the little inputs thing, the little inputs he has. I'm like, did you write that down?
Listen, why do you think? Girl, I'm creative AF.
No. I'm saying like the little inputs you have. I'm like, did you write that down, or did you think of it just now? Like, you know.
I'm crafty. I think on my feet, but we're sitting, so I think on my butt.
I like that.
I like it too.
Think on my butt.
So now it's not a sanatorium. It is now home to many mentally challenged older people. And guess what? Electroshock therapy reared its ugly head again and was used on many patients. And this is a really quick side note that I marked down here. Electroshock therapy is still being used on people today. Elderly people, specifically women, are targeted because they are vulnerable and oftentimes agree with doctors and what they think is best for them. This treatment, this is really highly controversial, so I'm just kind of bringing it to air because it's things that I came across when researching. This treatment is used because it gets the hospital money, it gets the doctor's money, and it's paid for by Medicare in the United States. So pretty much...
People still do that?
Patients aren't using their money because it's covered by Medicare. I don't know if it is anymore, but and pretty much it's kind of like a scam that if doctors perform this and they think that it fits, they can pretty much just make money from the government and everybody wins, right?
Oh my God.
It's they do use a lot lower of like electricity or currency or whatever the hell you want to call it.
I just really hope doctors don't do that anymore for the sake of like...
So I did come across vlogs of people who, younger people who have some mental illness, and they said that I found one person who said it helped them, and then I found other people who said it may have helped, but they were going through so many other treatments that they don't know exactly what it was that helped them, but they don't know if that's what helped them.
I would never. I don't think I would do that.
I don't think I would do it either. However, one morning, I woke up severely hungover, and I opened my phone, and there on my phone in the Safari app, I was making I was scheduling myself a lobotomy.
Stop.
It was when I lived with you. You and I must have been talking about something when we were drunk, and I was like, how easy is it to get one? And like, I don't think I would have went through with it, but your boy was literally like filling out. I mean, obviously it was like all jumbled and there was like typos and
Jonathan.
stuff. Jonathan. But listen, I don't encourage that, but I guess I found a place online and I'm pretty sure that's illegal.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's illegal.
Especially when you're like under the influence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably not a good idea. Would not recommend.
Yeah, I don't know. We did a lot of stupid things when we lived together.
Sure did. But budget cuts in the 1960s and 1970s led to worse conditions for these patients. And the facility closed for good in 1982 because of patient neglect, among other things they found. So sometime after it closed, it's now an abandoned building in the 80s, and a homeless man and his dog were found dead after falling down an elevator shaft in the abandoned building.
What is up with elevators?
Right. It's believed that the man and his dog found refuge there and somehow fell down, or, other articles said that they were pushed. Other articles said that they were shot.
That's my cat. He's upset that I'm not where he is.
Mm-hmm. But the buildings and land that made up Waverly Hills were auctioned off and changed hands many times over the course of the next 2 decades. But by 2001, the building was pretty much just like all taken over by either the elements. It was like weathered. It wasn't, being kept up with for 20 some years. And people, went there because it was creepy and they spray painted everything.
There's a sanatorium. I call it a sanitarium, but it's probably a sanatorium.
Okay.
By my hometown, and that's how it looks. It's like weathered. There's graffiti everywhere, but people say it's haunted. Someone asked me to go there at night, and I was like, "Are you joking? Is this a joke?"
I'll go.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do
We can do it.
She's like, Sarah's like, someone asked me to go, and I was like,
Because
are
I don't
you
trust
kidding?
them. I trust you.
And I'm like, let's go. Yeah, let's do it.
We could go when you come home with me.
Okay, perfect.
Love it.
I'm so down.
No, same.
I
I don't know though. You draw a lot of creepy shit.
do. So Waverly Hills had become the local haunted house, and it became a magnet for homeless people looking for shelter, teenagers who broke in looking for ghosts. You know how it goes. And visitors told the stories of slamming doors, lights in windows as if the power was still running in the building, strange sounds, eerie footsteps in empty rooms. Back in 2001, Tina and Charlie Mattingly. Oh yeah.
Love that.
They took over, and honestly, they're doing a pretty good job of it. They plan on opening it as a bed and breakfast one day. But I believe they replaced all of the windows. Current pictures of it now, the windows are new, but the rest of the building's old. So it's kind of a weird picture there. But I know a bunch of ghost hunting shows went there. So that's the history of it. So let's talk about the ghosts.
Ooh.
So these claims are coming from the Louisville Ghost Hunter Society. One of the legends told of a Waverly Hills involves a man in a white coat who is seen walking in the kitchen, and the smell of cooking food sometimes wafts through the room. During their initial visit, this is the Ghost Hunter Society, during their initial visit, they found the kitchen was a disaster. A ruin of broken windows, fallen plaster, broken tables and chairs, puddles of water and debris from a leaking roof, just totally dirty, nasty shit. And it, was clear that it hadn't been used in quite some time. And they reported that they heard sounds of footsteps, a door swinging open, then closing, and then the smell of fresh baked bread in the air. I can tell you, ain't nobody was baking no goddamn bread in that kitchen. So a quick search revealed that obviously nobody was in that room, and then they searched the entire building and there was nobody in the entire building, and they could come up with no logical explanation for what had occurred there. Now let's take a trip upstairs to the 5th floor, shall we?
I don't like the 5th floor.
On September 10th, 2006, Tom Halstead of Missouri Paranormal Research took a photograph of a ghostly apparition that looked almost exactly like a woman named Mary Lee, who was a young woman who lived in the sanatorium while it was open. Some believe Mary was a nurse. A lot believe that Mary was the nurse who actually hung herself in room 502. Others believe that she was a daughter of the Waverly Hills doctor who contracted TB himself. And on this 5th floor, other people have said that they've seen shapes moving in windows. They've heard disembodied voices telling the trespassers to get out. And another well-known ghost at Waverly Hills is a little boy named Timmy. Timmy was around 6 or 7 years old when he died at the hospital. And it's thought that since he died with his whole life ahead of him, his spirit could not move on, and he wanders the hospital trying to have some fun. So visitors have brought balls to play with them, and many claim that they see the balls moving, seemingly on their own.
We're not bringing no balls to the sanatorium, okay?
Listen, we got to bring our own damn balls if we have balls to get in.
That's
Jesus.
true. You're right.
So believers in Timmy say that it's him, while skeptics say that the ball is simply moving with uneven flooring or the wind or some bullshit like that. But in spring of 2017, so a couple months ago from when we're recording this.
That was like really, really soon.
Really soon.
I know.
Recently.
really soon.
A BuzzFeed employee named Ryan went to investigate Waverly Hills. You guys can find this on YouTube, actually. Not that I'm promoting it, but whatever. So he brought a blue bouncy ball with him. And when he tossed it to Tommy, it rolled down the hallway and stopped against a wall that was like a little bit down the hallway that they had not yet explored. So they walked to go find the ball, and they're like, oh, look, there it is. And they look up where the ball stopped, and in graffiti on the wall was Ryan's name.
Stop. This is on YouTube?
Yeah.
I'm gonna look.
Yeah, so somebody else, I guess named Ryan, like wrote his name there, and then Tommy came in, or Timmy, I guess, rolled the ball under his name, and the ball like stopped at the wall.
Oh, I thought okay.
Yeah. But again, not throwing shade, not spilling tea, but could be not real.
That's true. You never know. People make things up.
Don't be a skeptic, exactly, but be optimistic. Did that make... No, perfect.
I don't ever make sense, so I can't tell if you don't make sense.
I don't think we make sense.
I don't think so either.
Keep your change.
Nonsensical.
I want pennies. Or fuck. God damn it. Edit that out, Sarah. Okay. So tour guides at Waverly Hills have reported seeing doppelgangers of themselves. And to this, I say F to the U to the C to the K. No. Because no, if I see myself.
I don't want to see myself dead as a transparent being ever.
Imagine walking.
I'd be like, ew, look how bad I look.
Is that what my fucking thighs look like? Are you kidding me? Jenny Craig. But on some real shit, if you're walking in this place that's abandoned and you see a ghost that looks like your damn self, except it has black eyes and it's like dressed in like 1920s garb.
Like, what's his name? That ghost that I explained? Dutch Boy?
Dutch Boy?
How did you already forget that?
Oh, Coconut Head.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's your brother. Don't be rude. So there's many reports of it, and I kind of want to read a report that I found on Reddit from a kid who said that he visited during the 90s. Okay, so this is what he says. My sister's boyfriend led myself and two friends to the area at the bottom of the hill. They stayed in the car as myself and two friends went to explore. It was about 11 o'clock at night, so being dark, we stumbled upon a hole in the ground which served as ventilation hole, we believed, for the body chute. Ooh. My two friends and I climbed into the tunnel, and it was pitch black. We had no flashlights because, they were prepared. We had no flashlights, so we felt along the wall and headed uphill. Besides bumping into several hospital beds or transported items, it felt pretty eerie. That's a no from me.
I know. I would leave at that point.
I'm sorry.
If anything feels weird, I'm out. Because if you don't go with your gut feeling, you're dead wrong.
How are you gonna
like what I did there?
Did you think about that, or did you write that down? You
thought about it
on your feet? You thought about it on your feet. That was great. That's amazing. Love it. Love you.
Damn.
Greatly appreciated your contribution to this episode. Thank you.
I'm flipping him off.
But why the hell would you not bring a goddamn flashlight?
Like, it's nighttime. Come on.
Get it the fuck together.
Whatever day it is, daylight savings or whatever, 11 o'clock, it's still dark outside.
Seriously.
So bring your flashlight.
I don't care if it's a leap year, it's dark.
I'm saying.
So as we exited the tunnel, there it was. The 5-story monstrosity, Waverly Hills. We found an entrance into the building's ground level. Our eyes adjusted to the darkness, and we saw a place that had been trashed for over 2 years by trespassers. This was the 90s, so I don't know how recently exactly it was since it had been closed, but I guess 2 years. Spray paint all over the walls and down the halls. Equipment was still intact in many of the rooms, and the doors that the patients used at the time were then removed. On our journey to the top floor, which led out to the roof area near room 502.
See? There it is again.
We came upon an elevator shaft. The doors were open and there was no elevator, so it was just an empty shaft. And we stared down at the spot where the homeless man and his dog were found dead. Other than several creepy noises, everything seemed fine. We found the 5th floor only contained 4 rooms, which was used as the nurses' headquarters, and the infamous room 502, where the 2 nurses' lives ended. My friend and I went out to the roof, and we hung out thinking about stories we heard about the place, and we began to see figures moving in the dark inside the area on the 5th floor where we had just been. There were shadows everywhere, and we began to see perfect formations that looked almost like people were standing there. My friend Chris lost his cool, and he wanted to bolt out of the place. So after building up courage to face whatever was inside, we entered. We couldn't run due to the darkness, but they shut their eyes. The cat is really the cat don't like this story. It's like, all right, don't go in there, you dumbasses. I wanted to shut my eyes, but I had to see where I was going. Mostly, I saw shadows surrounding us, but I thought it was my mind playing tricks on me. As we entered the stairwell, we somehow ended up on the floor below us and not the ground floor. As we entered the 4th floor, our eyes adjusted. The moonlight reflected through the building, so we had a pretty good sight of what was down the hall. Side note, it had rained the night before, and due to the shape of the building, there were no windows left to block out the rain that entered, so on the floor was puddles of water, and in the puddles of water, they saw what they thought had been bare footprints, as if someone had just recently walked through them and left their tracks.
No, so you have 5 floors that this shit could happen? Nope. Sign me not up.
Sign me not up. We made our way out of the building and down the hill to a nearby apartment complex where my sister and her boyfriend told us they would be waiting inside the car. We told them and they laughed at our stories. We talked about it for several days and began to forget, but I never forgot. Years later, I joined a local paranormal research group who had major interest in investigating Waverly Hills. After hearing all the stories, things began to fall in place, and I found it within myself to return to Waverly Hills after 10 years. It is now being restored, slowly but surely, possibly into a bed and breakfast. Tours have been given there now, and for the past 5 or 6 years. They have a yearly haunted house on Halloween.
Nope.
And I guess that you can stay there for either half the night or the full night.
No,
For, of course, a fee. And all proceeds have gone to fixing up the place. That is my story of Waverly Hills, and it's just one of the many. Creepy, right? I also don't know who exactly. It was from Reddit. I don't know who did it, and I don't know what year that was posted in. But I do know that in 2006, the film Spook was being filmed on location along with visits of high-profile ghost hunters, which makes Waverly Hills Sanatorium, which has made it gain a reputation as being one of the most haunted places in the world. And it would seem to have all the necessary elements which would lead to a high-intensity paranormal activity. The number of patients who lost their lives on the ground is staggering, and the torment they suffered added the angst many researchers say is needed to compel a spirit to linger beyond death. Is Waverly Hills really the hotbed of paranormal activity many researchers claim? Or does the old and dilapidated building simply provide a good background for fictitious ghost stories? That, of course, depends on whether a person wants to believe it or not. And until we know what ghosts really are and if this place really is haunted, all we can do is speculate. There are many explanations for supposed ghost sightings at any locations. Without any hard evidence, the non-believers will never be persuaded. So I know people out there listening are like, this is bullshit, but have an open mind and just, be entertained. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium is indeed one of the scariest places on Earth.
I'm shook.
Creepy,
I want to go
right?
there.
That's kind of a far drive.
Yeah, I know. We're really far from there.
And I do know that ghost shows went there. I don't know exactly which one. I watched a couple clips from a couple different ghost shows, but I'm just gonna be skeptical. Remember that show business is still a business.
It sure is.
When you bring cameras in.
Remember what happened to the hills?
Stop! I'm not over that. I still have trust issues because of the last episode of The Hills. No spoiler alert. Just go watch it.
Watch the entire season and then get your heart broken at the end.
I made Jason watch the whole series just for that last episode.
That's what I'm saying. He's probably like, okay.
Yeah, but he was still shook.
That's
He
what I'm
watched the last
saying.
episode and he was like, what?
They did a really good spin on that. I'll give it to them for that.
I'll hand it to him.
Here's me handing it to them because that broke my heart.
I know. Oh, and this can be a coincidence, but I researched this over the course of a couple days, and 2 of the days I was doing it, I got vertigo. Like, I did not feel good. Yeah. True story.
I think my dog has vertigo.
How do you...
Her head is always tilted to the side.
Is it... That's not... Okay.
Oh, I thought that was vertigo.
She could just have, like, a fucked up balance.
Well, I mean, like I said, fucked up shit happens to you all the time. So, you never know.
True.
But, let's jump into my skeptical topic.
Let's do it.
Like I said before, I decided to approach this in a scientific way. I know that some things about this topic are skeptical, but I just wanted to open your eyes to something on the science side.
And I know 98% of our listeners are indeed scientists who went to Yale. So that's my fun fact.
You're so funny.
Thanks for listening.
On an evening in June, a woman waited at a chapel for a small group of nuns and priests to arrive. A cold chill entered the room as the priests began to pray. The woman slipped into a trance and then came to life before their very eyes. The woman spoke in multiple voices. My nose is fucked.
Her voice is fucked. The fuck?
Yeah, so one Latin, one deep and masculine, and another high-pitched. If you guessed what was taking place was an exorcism, you're correct.
Oh, you didn't even let me guess.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say a puppet show.
Oh, that is true. You could say a puppet show. Your fucking face. We've all seen the movies and TV shows surrounding this topic, but this exorcism was done by a scientist by the name of Dr. Richard Gallagher, an Ivy League educated, board certified psychiatrist, and a professor at Columbia University and also New York College. He assisted in helping the woman. Exorcisms were not a part of Gallagher's chosen path while studying medicine at Yale. I don't know how you knew that, but
yeah, well, but I don't. He's like, you know what? I'm going to major in exorcisms. You know?
Oh, I get to that in a second.
Oh,
he was aware of biblical accounts of demonic possession, but like many others, thought that they were ancient cultures' way to tackle mental disorders. Gallagher refers to himself as a man of science.
That's kind of hot,
right? He is now known as a facilitator for a network of exorcisms in the U.S. Side note, I don't know how true this is, but they're saying that exorcism in the U.S. is like at a really high rate right now. Again, it's skeptical.
right? I mean, it could, we all want attention too. So
he states exorcisms are real. Evidence shows victims speaking perfect Latin, objects like crosses and Bibles flying off shelves, and hidden knowledge about people victims never met before. Gallagher also shares a story of a 90-pound woman throwing a deacon about 200 pounds across the room.
I would have paid to see that, but at the same time, that's some scary shit, so I don't think I would want to have been there. No.
Gallagher states, that's not psychiatry, that's beyond psychiatry.
I thought you were going to say that's not psychiatry, that's Beyonce.
Ah, that's really funny.
Sorry, I'm triggered, but like the way that you were, okay.
Oh, I know. I read it and I was like, maybe I shouldn't put this in here, but
I love it.
It was a direct quote. He calls himself a consultant for the past 25 years and has aided clergy in telling the difference between mental illness and what is real. Reverend Gary Thomas, who the movie The Rite, have you ever seen that?
Never heard of it.
It's like an exorcism movie.
But the sequel to The Left. I'll leave. See you tomorrow.
Goodbye. Get out. I hate my voice right now. Okay. Reverend Gary Thomas, who the movie The Rite was based on his work, says he calls Gallagher whenever he needs help. Whenever I need help, I call on him, says Reverend Gary Thomas, one of the most famous priests in the United States. The movie The Rite was based on Thomas's work. Thomas states Gallagher is so respected in the field. He's not like most therapists who are either atheists or agnostics. Some critics say Gallagher is possessed by his own delusions. Still, the question is, how does a man of science get pulled into the world of possession? He states it was the run-in with the queen of Satan.
Oh.
This woman was charming and engaging and wore flowing dark clothes and black eyeshadow, because that makes someone...
Mm-hmm. Literally me in middle school. Did she have Evanescence on her iPod?
Yep, had to have. It is said she was part of a satanic cult. Referred to as Julia by Gallagher, she called herself the queen of the cult. The woman was convinced she was being attacked by a demon and called upon her local priest for help. The priest then reached out to Gallagher for a mental health evaluation. Why would a devil worshipper want to be free of the devil? Many asked. She was conflicted, Gallagher says. There was a part of her that wanted to be relieved of the possession. Gallagher got a team together and met Julia in a chapel. Strange things happened like any other in this situation. Objects would fly off the shelf. She knew Gallagher's mom died of ovarian cancer, and also knew Gallagher had 2 cats that tried to fight each other the night before one of her sessions. Spooky.
That's weird.
Right. Julia found a way to reach him even when she wasn't with him, he says. One night he was on the phone with Julia's priest, and they both heard voices that came from Julia earlier that day, even though she was nowhere near the phone and miles away. Gallagher believes he's on the winning side. He is also on the side of science. He says he's a stickler for the scientific method, that if it teaches people to follow the facts wherever they lead. He grew up in an Irish Catholic family. Seeing many cases like Julia's made his theory change. I don't believe in this stuff because I'm Catholic, he says. I try to follow the evidence. We had a sensational childhood, Mark Gallagher says, his brother.
I like that he is separating it.
Me too, and that's why I picked this article, because I'm like...
I've never heard of this guy. This is fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. My mother and father were great about always helping neighbors or relatives out. Their mother was a homemaker and their father was a lawyer who'd fought in World War II. My father used to walk us proudly into the church. He taught us to give back. Gallagher's 2 ways of giving back was helping with the mentally ill as well as possessed. That's the story on Gallagher. So there's also a doctor, Mark Albanese, who is a friend of Gallagher's, and he studied medicine at Cornell. He says there's a certain openness to experience that are happening that are beyond what we can explain by MRI scans or even psychological theories. There's also another doctor called Jeffrey Lieberman who...
Are these all like kind of science? They're like sciencey? Okay.
Yeah, so I thought that I could like open this up so people can research these people and kind of jump into the world of science other than
just
exorcisms. Yeah. One night Lieberman was having a psychological evaluation with a woman, and he basically said weird things started happening in his house. That night he went home and his lights were flickering and things like that. So I don't know.
Weird.
I was skeptical until I read this article, and now I'm like...
I think I'm always skeptical, especially on what people write online.
Yeah, definitely.
But also, so our stories definitely tie in together. Let me explain to the people. I think we've had this conversation. I'm sure we've had this conversation before. But my view of like what something paranormal or like a quote unquote ghost or a spirit is like, I mean, if you think about it, there's the law of conservation of energy, and it states energy cannot be created nor destroyed, right?
Right.
So if like I feel like we're some sort of like energy that lives within like a skeletal body, if that makes sense. Like we are just like, we're energy. If you think about it, that's what the law of attraction, like we put things out there with our thoughts,
right? Yeah.
Because it's technically like actual energy waves. And like, yeah, let me get my tinfoil hat. I know people are saying that, but this is just, what I think of it. So like when you take a photograph and it captures like an orb, do you know what I mean?
It's like energy.
Yeah. So I know a lot of those are like dust particles and they're really dirty places.
Okay, but a big, huge clump of dust.
Well, so that's what I view it as, is kind of like, and they can like take the form of people or like the people they used to be, if that makes sense. It's just like energy that for some reason that obviously we don't know is like still kind of hanging out here. So like for a scientist to be like,
this is real, this is happening, I've seen it happen.
So I know like a lot of people, like exorcisms come from, well, I know a lot of like the most famous exorcisms that happened out there that were real were either like, well, were either hoaxes and they weren't real, or were I forget the name of the girl, but I firmly believe that she was just like very mentally ill.
Was Emily Rose? Emily Michael or something like that?
I don't remember what her name is. Emily Rose was the fake one, I think. Well, this was from another country. I think she was Russian or she was German. I don't recall which one. But I looked into that case last year or the year before, and I'm pretty sure she was just like severely mentally ill and was not getting the treatment she needed because they thought it was something else.
But that's what Dr. Gallagher states when he says like the priests call him and he takes them into a psychiatrical evaluation. Right. So it's not like he can tell if these people are like,
if it's that or it's something else.
Or they're mentally ill.
Yeah. That's interesting. And then that kind of brings it into like the lights flickering at his house. Like if he's like around that energy, which God knows, well,
it brings it to him.
Whoever knows where it came from. Beyonce knows where it came from. But like, yeah, you are surrounding yourself with that energy, whether it be negative or positive, it can still affect you. And Sarah can vouch for me for this one. I'm not going to like, maybe I should. No, I don't want to get into the whole story. I was doing research I was writing a script. I was writing a horror movie script when I lived with Sarah, and it was really dark. If you've ever seen Lords of Salem, it's kind of similar to
Lords
that.
Of Salem is one of our
it's
favorites.
Not, yeah, it wasn't, it was like that dark type of shit. So I'm writing my thing and I'm researching. Like, I want to get the real like demonology and real creepy stuff. I want to get things right. So I'm doing research. And as I'm doing research the first night, so I'm doing the research and the smoke detectors go off and they're not wired in the ceiling. And it was all of the smoke detectors like in the house.
Every single one.
And if they were wired in the house, it would mean like if one goes off, they set all of them off, but they were like battery operated, which only would trigger one, and they all kind of went off. So that was weird. The next day, after Sarah grounded me from my laptop.
I sure did. I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I was like, stop whatever you're doing. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not having any of this nonsense.
So after the next day, I snuck into her room and I found where she hid my laptop. The next day, my room was in the basement and I'm typing, and something falls onto my keyboard. And I look down and it looks like a little stick, but the stick had legs. Yeah, this stick had a lot of legs. Then I look a little bit closer. It's a millipede. A millipede fell from the ceiling onto my laptop as I'm writing about creepy, crazy, satanic, fictitious shit.
It's now raining millipedes in his room.
Then another one falls.
And another one.
No, it was only two. It was only two, but 2 millipedes fell on my laptop. It could have been awful timing with, I was in a basement, but I had never really had anything fall from the ceiling.
Do you remember that one time when there was all those flies in your room?
In my room?
Yeah, you don't remember that? There was so many flies in
Oh
your
my
room.
God. Yeah, but I think that was because my window was right there and like the trash cans were outside, because that happened at my house and I think that was some spooky shit.
Yeah, that was
but I think in that basement, I think that was just the trash cans.
No, your window was like, had those glass blocks.
Yeah.
How are the flies getting
Well,
in?
they cut the hole out of
the
my,
ceiling.
and I plastic wrapped it.
Oh, right.
I duct taped plastic wrap. No, not over the ceiling, out of the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Sorry,
I
I'm
think
looking at this big hole in my ceiling.
just think about all the things that are going to fall out of it. But, yeah, but I like weird shit like that. I don't know why. It just gives me the fuel to wake up in the morning.
Stop that noise.
But let's lighten the mood with a fun fact. I will go first. Wait, were you done? I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. So my fun fact is the Guinness Book of World Records holds the world record for being the book most often stolen from public libraries.
Oh, shit.
Think about it. That's like, when we took trips to the library, I love weird shit, so I would go straight for that book. And they only had 2 copies in my library, and I was trying to cop one, but I didn't.
Oh, that's good. You didn't steal one. Ow.
They always had the most fascinating stuff.
Because if you stole one, you'd be a part of the Guinness World
The
Records. Guinness. I can't talk because my nose.
Guinness
World Records. So mine is, if you lift a kangaroo's tail off the ground, it can't hop. So I did this because, like, I know. Remember when
you did this?
Well, I.
Oh, this is your fact because
This
in my
is
head.
my fact because.
Well, I thought you were saying I did this like back when I went to Australia down under. I threw a shrimp on the barbie and then I held the kangaroo's tail.
Because you remember all those things where like people are getting beat up by kangaroos.
Yeah.
So like I'm just trying to help people out.
Yeah, there you go. Lift their tails.
Lift their tails and they can't hop.
I just watched Kangaroo Jack 2 days ago.
I love that movie.
0 out of 10 would not recommend.
Yeah, that's scary.
It was
Imagine
so
getting
bad.
Imagine getting the shit beat out of you by a kangaroo.
That's embarrassing, but that's stupid. Also, if you've ever like wondered what the inside of a kangaroo pouch looks like, it's not as cute as my Beanie Babies made it out to be.
No.
But you should Google it. But be warned, it's creepy.
Yeah, don't do it like on a full stomach or something.
Or on your work computer.
I Google all this. I was Googling exorcisms on my work computer.
Girl.
I do all of our research on my work computer, and I know they're like, what the fuck?
Girl. Oh,
I
no.
know. I just told my secret. It's fine. I'll just be like, I have a podcast. You could listen to it. Here are the facts.
Please subscribe.
Please download.
Well, thank you guys for downloading. And thank you guys for the new ratings. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks,
and we would
guys.
also like to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters, Veronica, Jason, Barbara, and Robert. Thank you guys so much. You help this podcast happen.
Greatly.
And if you would like to join those names and get 2 bonus episodes every month, that's 24 bonus episodes a year. You can head over to patreon.com/esoteric oddities. You can find us on Instagram, Esoteric Oddities, Twitter,
Esoteric Oddity.
ODDIE. And you can send us an email at odditiespodcast@gmail.com. Also follow our Facebook. We've been posting stuff
Yes.
very consistently, at least 1 or 2 times a day. Really interesting articles or things that we find or we come across. So that's facebook.com/esoteric oddities. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, guys.
Stay weird.
Yes, stay weird. Very weird. Don't
also,
get into fights with kangaroos.
Yeah, don't do that. Bye.
Bye.